Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kelby Bachman, and please give it up for the next guest on the show, Matt Malcom. So Matt is from Glenwood, Iowa. He was a four-time state qualifier for the Rams, placing fifth as a junior and winning a state title as a senior. Matt spent his redshirt year at Iowa before transferring to Nebraska-Kearney and becoming a Loper legend. Matt was a five-time All-American, placing fourth and fifth to go along with two national titles. In 2022, he helped lead UNK to their first team title since 2013. After spending 2 years as a teacher and head wrestling coach at Bellevue East High School in Nebraska, Matt is now an assistant wrestling coach at North Dakota State. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy assistant coach Matt Malcom. In the heart of West Union, Iowa, lies a hidden gem in Euphoria Coffee. Owned by local residents Nicole and Shane Havenstreit, they source everything they can from local vendors. From hot and iced drinks, to savory breakfast burritos, to baked goods, to botany tea, and even homemade waffles, Euphoria Coffee is a place your entire family can enjoy. You can find more information at drinkeuphoriacoffee2go.com or visit their Facebook page. And we also have a special gift just for you. Next time you stop in, you can get a free baked good with a $20 purchase. Just mention the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Euphoria Coffee. Our purpose is deeper than coffee. Fargo, North Dakota. How is it up there?
Oh, it's good. It's cold. I know you guys are cold this week, though, too. We didn't get the snow that you guys got, but it's nice and cold up here for sure.
Yeah. What brought you up there?
Just the job, actually. I was finishing up the school year there last spring down there in Bellevue, and had gotten a phone call from one of the other assistant coaches up here that I kind of knew from college time. He wrestled at Concordia there in Seward. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of knew each other, went back and forth for a couple of days, and he more or less got me the opportunity to come up and do an interview. And it was just like one of those things you can't pass up, and was super excited to, move up here and get going at this level.
Yeah. And you probably been up there before wrestling at Fargo and stuff. So is it, was it much of a tour at this point when you went up there?
Just the facilities, just like the city, more or less. But no, other than that, been up here, done it all. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, how was it up there? I mean, aside from the weather, the season, everything smooth sailing, or are you having some bumps in the road, or?
Yeah, no, we're in a rebuilding year for sure, as far as the goes. So this would be Coach Obi Blanc is our head coach.
Yeah,
he this is his second season as the head coach here. He bumped up from an assistant a couple of years ago, and in that process lost a few guys in the transfer portal, and then just trying to rebuild the team and bring in all of his recruits and everything like that. And this year I think has been a lot better than last year, they say. Mm-hmm. Got a good class coming in this next season, so hopefully building in the right direction. It's mm-hmm. been fun. Part of the team this year, though, too, because you can kind of see where we started off in the kind of low end and then just been building through the season. So it's been fun, getting to know the guys and also seeing everybody compete better week to week as well.
Yeah. And North Dakota is a pretty proud state in terms of wrestling, Yeah. You kind of think of the Dakotas, you kind of see some people here and there, but I mean, it's a proud state. One of your guys, Kyle Berwick, I had on a couple years ago. He's an awesome dude, and happy he's up there and having success. But there's some talent, there's some pride there. It's a nice little spot, as a whole.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and actually, I didn't expect Fargo to be quite as big as what it is too. I think we're pushing like 150, 200,000 people in the Fargo Moorhead area, so mm-hmm. Not quite as big as Omaha, but I mean, in a sense, it's pretty similar. We have about everything. It reminds me a lot of like the Omaha area. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
Right.
when you go up there for Fargo, you just probably you go up there, you go to the dome, you're in that little kind of a bubble, if you will. You probably don't venture out a whole lot to see what Fargo has to offer as a whole.
Right. No, definitely. Yeah. Between Fargo and then there's like, a little subset city called West Fargo. And then, on the other side of the river, we have Moorhead and everything like that. So yeah, it's pretty big compared to what I kind of expected coming up
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, and it'll be nice when Fargo comes around. You'll be able to stay at home. You'll just make the little trip over. Like Fargo
Yep.
time's gonna be nice for you guys, I bet.
No, and not have to travel 6+ hours or anything. No, it's nice.
Yeah. When did you start your, wrestling? When you were younger
Uh,
or like a little guy or?
yeah. So I believe I would have been 6 years old, somewhere in that range. The 4 to 7, I think, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, somewhere. Um, I actually got into it because one of my buddies from Glenwood, uh, his dad was a part-time, like an assistant coach at the club, and
Mhm.
started taking it around with his older brother, and he was really enjoying it and got me to start going, and it was just a lot of fun, and I actually spent a whole year not competing because I thought I had to know everything there was about wrestling before I could go out
Mhm.
and, but quickly figured out that wasn't necessarily the case. But
Yeah.
just a naive little kid. But
Mhm. And
yeah.
we talked, or I talked about proud areas, North Dakota being one of them, Glenwood. I mean,
Mhm.
for the size of the town that it is, um, wow, they have a really, really pride and a lot of tradition there.
Yeah.
We were there for the tournament and you just look on the wall and you're like, holy cow.
Hmm.
Whew.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of fun growing up in Glenwood, being able to be part of that culture that cares about wrestling. It was really fun.
Yeah, and you had no shortage of people to go watch. I think, you had Mitch Artis and Ty
Yep.
Copsey and all those guys,
Hmm.
being able to watch now. I think what Kirk Artist maybe. The list
Yep.
goes on. There's a bunch, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that. Phew.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. There's a lot. Yeah. And it kind of goes, yeah, in a little bit of like ebbs and flows too in Glenwood. Like there'll be, 5, 6, 7 years where, they're having a lot of success. Then it'll go down for a couple of years and then it'll be right back up there. So it's just kind of cool. It comes back around. It's not like when the lows are there, it doesn't stick around for too long.
Right, which is impressive, because again, it's not like when you go to Glenwood, it's not this like because it was 3A. It was a 3A school when you were there. Uh, it doesn't strike you as a big 3A town. When you think of 3A, you're like Iowa City, Des
Right.
Moines, and
Yep.
you go to Glenwood and you're like, wow, really? 3A? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, we dropped down my senior year, dropped down to 2A. And it was like,
Hmm.
okay, this is a better fit. Just
Hmm.
well, when you're traveling and wrestling all the 3A teams, and it's like, dang, schools are massive. And
Hmm.
then you go travel against some 2A schools, like, oh, okay, these guys are right about the same size as us. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Because like where you're at in Western Iowa, I mean, I'd have to think really hard. I should have mapped this out, but I don't even know where the nearest 3A school is. I'm sure it's probably closer than I think,
Uh,
but I'm,
Council Bluffs has a few, but
oh geez, duh,
yeah.
yeah. But
But
I
outside
mean,
Bluffs, I have probably Des Moines. Well, Des Moines or Sioux City,
right. I
the next
mean,
ones. Yeah.
that's a hike for you guys.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
to
we
even
were.
see competition that you'll see at state or districts.
Yeah, our district, I believe, was like the 3 Sioux City schools, the 3 Council Bluff schools, and then a random Des Moines school would get put in our district like every year. Rotated with them, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Sheesh.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you have some success then growing up? Like after you took your year off to really study the sport? Like,
Right. Not too much, really. I mean, just your local success, I would say. Like,
yeah.
I wasn't a star wrestler growing up. We really kind of stayed around the state of Iowa, Nebraska, a little bit of Kansas, Missouri, but we didn't really travel to a lot of national tournaments until, shoot, probably high school, really.
Really?
But even, in middle school, for the area had a lot of success, like local tournaments on the middle school wrestling team, stuff like that had a lot of success. But like even at the state tournament, I think the AAU state tournament, I want to say I took 7th or 8th in one of those brackets, and then 5th in like one of the other state tournaments. There's like 12 state tournaments
Yeah.
for little kids. But yeah, so never really, wasn't out there crushing everybody in the area, but had a little bit of success here and there, I would say.
Yeah. So then when you qualified not only as a freshman in 3A, like did that shock you a little bit? Did that bode your, or increase your confidence? I mean, that's impressive.
A little bit. I wouldn't say it was too big of a shock right away. Had a decent season. I don't know how well I did. I can't remember, but had a decent season. I think I was expecting to make it to state there that freshman year. It was, what was just the standard for anybody that was in that lineup that year. I think we ended up qualifying like 7 or 8. So was just kind of expecting it going in. And then I think it shocked me once I got there that it's like, I went 0-2, I believe. And it was like, oh crap. All right. Well, I guess got to do better than this, But I would say that was probably the bigger shock, was like, holy crap. Okay, here we are. Let's do it. But then, yeah. So I would say that was probably the bigger shock that freshman year.
Yeah. Was that when you started to take it pretty seriously, or was there a period of time where you decided to really buckle down and focus on the sport?
Yeah, so that would have been, I want to say after that freshman year is like the first time that I had ever gotten into like club wrestling. And, so I'd never wrestled freestyle or Greco. If I could go back and redo anything about my wrestling career, it'd be trying to get into freestyle and Greco, as like a 6th, 7th, 8th grader, somewhere in there, get a little bit more into it younger. But kind of dipped my toe into it that year. I didn't go to Fargo or anything like that after my freshman year of high school. And I might even be a year off too. I can't remember how many years I went to club there in the summer, but, and then, went to club through the fall, as well. And then, got back into it. I think had a better season overall the next year as a sophomore. And then I think I went 1-2 at state that year. So, a couple of improvements, but then it was like right after that state tournament that it was like, okay, let's do this, and buckled down and got really involved in the sport after, kind of where it took off was after that sophomore year.
Yeah. And so you were just before kind of the clubs in this area really started to take off. I don't think MWC was around.
Right.
I'm not sure about the Best Wrestler or like Nebraska Boys or NWA. I don't think they were around. So like you were just right before all that, weren't you?
Right. Yeah. So when I was young, up until like 7th, 8th grade, the big one around was Golden Eagles.
Yeah.
With Keith Massey. And then he had moved and kind of shut the club down. He's back now with Powerhouse, which I think started up right at the end of my high school career, maybe right after I left high school. I can't remember. But then MWC was just gaining traction as I was getting into middle school and high school. And that's actually where I started going there after freshman or sophomore year. That's what, and then I was one of like the first bigger classes that they had graduated out. They had a couple of guys the year before me and a couple the year before that, but I think in my class, we sent like 10 or 12 guys to the college level from the club. And it like, since then it's just like snowballed, where it's like, they have, 30, 40 kids going to wrestle in college every year, graduating from the club.
It's insane.
Right.
What was that like going over, where you were probably one of the better kids in your room to go over to like MWC and just get probably beat up on, where you're par with the course almost? And I mean, was that difficult at all?
It was, but it was a lot of fun too, where it's like, you get to go in there and, at the time there wasn't a single kid from Iowa in the club. I don't recall, at least. There might have been one or two. So like you go over there and like we didn't really travel out of Iowa a whole lot in high school. Like we didn't really go over into Nebraska very much, so I didn't really know any of the guys that were in the club at the time. So going over there, it was like a whole new world of wrestling. But I mean, after a couple of weeks, wrestling's kind of weird. Once you've rolled around with the dude for a couple of days, you're like best friends. So but got fit in with them pretty well, and then it was just kind of how it was from there on. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you do the whole sports circuit growing up? Like it sounds like most kids do.
To an extent. I played soccer from, about the same time that I started wrestling, maybe a year or two after, up through like 7th or 8th grade, I think, 6th, 7th or 8th, somewhere in there. And then played baseball about the same amount of time. And then I actually ran cross country my freshman year of high school.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Outside of that, I think I always knew that wrestling came first, and then the other sports were kind of just on the side, something to do fun and take up some time, get away from my parents for a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of soccer, Glenwood, like their soccer team and their soccer program's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like no surprise. I was waiting for you to say soccer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely, they're really good.
Were you a striker or what? Goalie?
No, I was not fast enough. No, I was defense or midfield, I believe. But kind of got out of the game right before it actually gets really serious on those positions. So more have fun. But
what about football?
Never played football.
Really? Okay.
I wish I could go back. There were a few medical things when I was younger where talked with some doctors and they were like, you kind of, I have something going on with my back. And I still have a little bit of problem every now and then, but it was like wrestling or football was more or less
really okay.
It wasn't a great diagnosis by the doctor, but at the same time, got to choose one, and wrestling was the obvious choice at the time. So and still stand by it today, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
what about basketball? Did you play it all?
No, I have probably the worst hand-eye coordination out of anybody in my family. I think it was known from the beginning that basketball probably wasn't going to be it. But my parents did make sure that I went to a couple of basketball camps just to rule it out. And it definitely ruled out basketball for me.
Yeah.
So,
did your family wrestle? Like, what even got you into it in the first place? I don't even think I asked you that.
Yeah, my dad wrestled in high school. He had a pretty successful high school career. And then actually I think he was planning on wrestling in college, and then ended up tearing his knee up just right at the beginning of his senior year, and kind of took some options off the table and kind of a little bit of desire too. And then his brother actually wrestled. He was really good as well for Glenwood. So it was kind of just like, I don't know. I think they were the first two in our family to wrestle, and then my mom's side doesn't have too much of a tradition of wrestling either. So kind of started with those two, and then, me and buddies wanted to do it. So, it was pretty easy for my dad to jump on board and be like, oh, yeah. So, I have a little brother. He tried it. He didn't really fall in love with it. He actually raced motorcycles there for a little while, and making that his future as well. So he is a motorcycle mechanic there in Glenwood, still down there. So he does really, really well. It's actually pretty impressive, the operation he's got going there.
Is there a lot of that going on down in this area?
Surprisingly, yeah. There's quite a bit. There's a lot in Lincoln. He's kind of really in a good spot where it's like, he gets a lot of the Western Iowa people that race, and then he gets a lot of the Eastern Nebraska people as well, and then a few from Missouri and Kansas as well come up. Because there's not really a whole lot of shops in the area, so he kind of has a little bit of a monopoly on that as well. But no, he's on, and he does a great job too. Like, he has a state-of-the-art shop right now, and it's pretty cool.
And it's in Glenwood?
Yeah, it's actually still in. Yeah, still there. So I
Wow.
think he's starting to kind of look at the big picture and see what he wants to do. I know he's talked about maybe moving out to the Omaha area, or or somewhere down south where they race all year. I don't know exactly what his plan is, but yeah, he does pretty well. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like he's almost outgrowing,
Yeah,
Glenwood,
definitely.
which, wow. And I would not have guessed that this area was a motorcycle or dirt bike area, I guess.
Right. Yeah. No, it is a little bit. Yeah. No, definitely.
Do you ride?
I did a little growing up. Nothing like him. I think I raced like once and didn't do very well. But yeah, nothing like. But
yeah.
But it was kind of nice though. We both had our own things that we were passionate about. Didn't have to, compare ourselves to each other. But the two sports are pretty similar though. They have a lot of individuality, and it's really you against other people, and so it was. We can relate a lot on a lot of things in terms of competition.
Really?
That, but even though they're two separate things, so yeah. No.
That's interesting because I wouldn't think that they would even remotely be able, aside from it being individual, I wouldn't even be able to comprehend why the two would mesh. But hey,
definitely.
So back to you a little bit here. So you're wrestling. You're going into your junior year. Did you feel good? Did you feel like you made some pretty big gains? And that's when you placed.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was feeling really good that junior year going in. Had a couple of really good tournaments at the beginning of the year. We went to that Council Bluffs Classic at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, tough.
Had good tournament. I think I won it that season. Actually beat a guy that ended up beating me at the state tournament in the semis. It would have been Marcus Coleman. Ended up wrestling at Iowa State. Wrestled him in the semis. Felt great. I knew he was going to be one of the better kids in the state that year. And had a great season. Winning the state tournament. I don't know what it was. Wrestled him in the semis, and he tore me up pretty good. And it was pretty devastating at the time. I remember that. And that, ultimately ended up driving me to, continue to get better and stuff like that. But yeah, no, definitely. It was that sophomore to junior year was probably my biggest jump, even though it wasn't necessarily, you go from 1 and 2 to 5th place. It's not necessarily the biggest jump you do, but in terms of confidence and just wrestling abilities, I would say that was probably my biggest summer in terms of stepping up in my career.
Yeah, and Ames that's a little bit of a hike to Council Bluffs,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
that had to be not only crushing because you didn't, your goal is to win a state title, but to go from beating a guy and it sounds like he didn't just beat you or whatever, he kind of took it to you, that has to be even more devastating because now you're, man, am I even that good? Did I get much better? I beat this kid. What happened? You know what I mean? Right. So a lot can flood in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially in the moment too. Looking back, I look at his career and his trajectory. It's like, oh, okay, I was just a stepping stone in his path at the time, when he kind of took off. I think that was his sophomore year. I believe he's a year younger than I am. So, and then, it was that sophomore year where he just kind of started taking off. And then from there, it was like he was separating himself from everybody in the area. And then, obviously, once he got to college, had a great college career at Iowa State as well. So, but yeah, looking back, that one's a little bit easier. In the moment, though, it was like, holy cow, what did I just do type of deal. But yeah, so, and then, ended up taking 5th, and then sold in pretty well into freestyle and Greco that summer. That was my first year actually coming up here after that junior year to the tournament in Fargo, and did all right. I think I went 3 and 2 in both styles. It was my first year competing it really. And it's a tough tournament too, but definitely wasn't the tournament that I was hoping for. But it was also a really cool experience and a lot of fun.
Yeah. And when you found out you guys were going 2A, did you have much discussion about it? Did anyone really say what a difference it would be, if there would be a difference, or was it just like, nah, who cares? We're just gonna wrestle?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I don't think there was. I don't. It's a very vague memory for me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't think it was that big of a deal. I'm sure it was a little bit just in terms of our schedule. Like we had
True.
a lot of stuff, but we did a lot of in-conference duels, and the Hawkeye 10 conference is full of all classes. Actually, it's kind of unique to Iowa. I know like Nebraska, like your Metro Conference has to be all Class A teams, and all are in the same division. But in Iowa, like we had East Mills and Fremont, or in Southwest Iowa, something. Were both 1A at the time, and then Creston, Clarinda, all those schools were all 2A, and then like Lewis Central was in our conference, and they were 3A with us as well. So we wrestled a lot of out of division teams anyway. So it wasn't like a huge change to our schedule, but there was definitely a few changes here and there to make sure that we were wrestling more of a 2A schedule than a 3A. But other than that, I mean, districts changed, state changed a little bit, but
Mhm.
nothing crazy.
Yeah, because you had sectionals now. Now you got to go to sectionals.
That's right. Yeah. That was something. But I think that was probably the biggest thing that we were talking about, was like, we have to, worry about one more weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I don't know. Looking back, it wasn't a big deal, but I know like trying to qualify more guys on the team, some of those bubble guys, I remember it was more of like, oh crap, now they got to be on for 2 weekends in a row, or, just stuff. But yeah, not too big of a deal.
Yeah. And lastly, I'll ask about is like when it came to the state tournament, did you think about your path, or was it just, because it is a little bit of a difference between 3A and 2A, and sometimes you compare and you look at who won your bracket in 3A or 2A or vice versa. I mean, did you even care?
Yes and no. I'm sure some of the other guys, because when I graduated, we had a pretty young team at the time. I think as far as state qualifiers, I think I might have been the only senior. Maybe there's two of us. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then the class 2 or 3 down was probably one of the better classes to come through. Glenwood. So they were pretty young still. So for them, maybe a little bit more. I mean, at the time I had been there 3 times, and one of those things, it didn't really matter at that point. It was just like, got to go do this. So it doesn't matter if we're 3A or 2A or whatever it is. And, I'm saying that now, but I'm sure in the moment, like, freaking out,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it just kind of was what it was. And it's still a state tournament, still another bracket. And, got to go compete at a high level.
Yeah. Did you feel like, now that I think about it, like even a slight chip on your shoulder that, all right, I've wrestled 3A. I've been at the state tournament in 3A, the biggest class. Supposedly you think of it as the toughest class. Now you're down to 2A, and not saying that 2A is worse or anything, but just that there was this mentality of, I should get it done. I've placed at the toughest level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would say, yeah, just a little bit. At the time, we actually wrestled a lot. So like I said, like we kind of kept some of our 3A schedule. So we had kind of wrestled a lot of the guys in 3A, a little bit in 2A. We really didn't see a lot of the guys. A lot of the 2A schools, 1A schools that are, qualify, a lot of guys are over on the eastern side of the state. So we don't see a whole lot of them too often in high school. But, the guys that we had wrestled, and, we kind of knew where we stood with them. But for the most part, like we really didn't know a whole lot there that first year, I would say. At least I'm sure it's different now that they've been in there for a while, but didn't really know a whole lot of the guys that were going to be in the bracket. So it was maybe a little bit more like uncharted territory a little bit that first year. Just trying to figure out which schools. I mean, you have schools that as a program show up ready to go, and you have schools of the program that go lay eggs first round, or you just don't know all those little things that you do kind of when you've been in the same class and wrestled there a bunch of times, stuff like that.
True.
But yeah, so for the most part, I mean, a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Just another tournament, and just got to go wrestle and compete well. And it's really the biggest thing that we were focused on at the time.
Yeah, and compete well you did. You pinned your 3 guys, and then you won, I think, 18-5?
Yeah.
Did that hockey stick a little bit, like your what's the word I'm looking for? Like your people calling you and your prospects and recruiting, that's the word.
You mean that like senior year?
Yeah, after you did what you did at State, I mean, did that really start having people call you and be like, wow, whoa, it's Malcom kid?
At the time, I was already planning on wrestling at Iowa.
Really?
I had committed like right around like the homecoming time of the fall to the Iowa. So kind of knew where I was going already. And, it wasn't, really, there wasn't too much anymore at that point.
Why? So, why'd you commit so early?
At the time, that was about average.
Really?
Commit during the fall of that senior year. Now it's, I mean, shoot, we're lucky if there's guys still around the fall of senior year.
I know. I feel kind of old asking why you committed so early, and you're like, well, that's just the way it was back then. I'm like, wow, sheesh.
Yeah. Now it's like, shoot, I think now we are able to call guys going into their junior year on June 15th is the first, June or July 15th is the first time that we're able to call guys during the summer. So, and shoot, a lot of those guys are, the junior class right now in terms of top prospects, almost everybody's off the board already. It's crazy. So,
yeah.
So had committed to there in the fall, so going into season, it was kind of nice having everything kind of figured out for the next year, knew what I was going to do. There weren't really a whole lot of those question marks anymore. And, just had to go compete at a high level and get for college.
That had to be nice, to have that off your plate.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Why'd you choose Iowa?
So with wrestling that freestyle and Greco, that junior and senior year, I developed a relationship with Ryan Morningstar. He's one of the assistants there. He's still there now. But he was always one of the coaches for the like junior duels team down in Tulsa and then the team up at Fargo. And he was our coach down in Tulsa, and we just, we had a great team actually those couple of years. I think we ended up like 3rd or 4th both years in both styles, but we, just kind of clicked, and he was like, hey, why don't you come on a visit this fall? And, went up there that fall of senior year and had a bunch of other Iowa guys on the visit too. And we all kind of committed, and it was just one of those things. So It was a lot of fun, and developed a great relationship with them. At the time, I thought that was going to be the best place for me. And, it was, who doesn't want to go be an Iowa Hawkeye growing up in Iowa, right?
Right. Well, you were actually, I'm starting to learn, like, you're kind of in a unique spot where you're close to, on the west, you're on the west side, you're close to Nebraska. Ty Copsey went to Augustana, and he said, I've talked with him a little bit, and he was like, he remembers Augustana and wanting to go there. And, that's just in South Dakota. It's not too far from you guys in Glenwood. So, there's a little more out of state schools that you could look at when you're over here on the west side.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know I don't think Nebraska was ever a consideration for me to go there. And then also they never really reached out either when I was in high school. And then went up on a official visit to Augustana that fall as well. I think those were my 2 official visits, was Augustana but yeah, so no, there's definitely, University of Sioux Falls is in South Dakota now. It's actually right across the street from Augustana. There in Sioux Falls. They're a D2 program. There's a couple of D3s in Nebraska Wesleyan, and then Doane is NAIA, Midland NAIA, and then Nebraska-Kearney Adrian or Division II. So there's actually quite a few in Nebraska now, which is awesome. A lot of
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing I've learned kind of being out here is there's a different you have your eyes on different schools when you're out here. You know, I came from Northeast Iowa where it was Wartburg, Dubuque, Loris,
Mhm.
gosh, Mitchell's gonna kill me. Luther, you know.
Yep.
There's all these schools over there, and you're like, gosh, these are awesome programs. These are where I'm gonna go. And when you come out here, you kind of hear of completely different schools that you're like,
Right.
wow. I mean, it's kind of it's fun. It's cool,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Definitely.
So
Definitely.
you end up in Iowa. You take
Mm-hmm.
two visits, one to Augustana, one to Iowa. You go to Iowa, um, you redshirt and have a really good year. I mean, 19-5. I mean, and then what happened? Not in a bad
Yeah.
way, just so you transfer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that whole year, shoot, I mean, I think a few of us even moved up there at the couple weeks after graduation of high school. We stayed the summer up there, trained up there, getting ready for
Wow.
freestyle and Greco stuff over the summer and everything. And came back for a couple weeks and then went back up in August and moved into the dorms and everything. Had a lot of fun. Trained really hard. Program was awesome. It was wrestling was by far the best part of being in Iowa City. Just being program, going to the duels, all that kind of stuff. And the training itself, it was tough, but it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so then that season, went by, had a good season. Team had a good season. Would have been a couple of months after nationals. So you're talking April, May. Just wasn't doing so well in school. That first semester of school, I was a kind of a little bit of a shock. A little bit of
course,
a little bit of immaturity.
for sure.
Looking back, at the time, you try to, blame it on other people or, make excuses, this and that. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's not a whole lot of excuses you can make for having a bad GPA. It's either you do the work or you don't, especially, at the college setting. It's pretty much that way. But yeah, so had a pretty bad GPA after that first semester, and then second semester it kind of got a little bit worse. Not to the point of ineligibility, but probably teetering the line. I can't remember exactly. But then, that was kind of going bad. Wasn't necessarily enjoying some of the social aspects of, where I was at, what I was doing, stuff like that. I, wasn't talking to my family very often. So it was just kind of not who I was. I mean, I graduated high school with a 3.8, 3.9 GPA, somewhere in there. So the GPA was made me feel really bad about myself. And then, I was very family oriented and wasn't super close with them anymore. So that kind of took a little bit of a toll, and then you throw in, you're going in the room and wrestling really, really hard every day, and that's the highlight of the day. But then, just when those other things aren't piecing together, it's makes for a long couple of months, and ended up just deciding that, maybe this wasn't for me. And I've probably told multiple versions of this. Just, how you see it in the moment versus how you look back at it after a year, after you've been out for 4, 5, 6 years, a lot of it comes back to me and the choices I was making, and, just not quite living up to who I wanted to be as a person. And kind of just set me down a little bit of, I don't know, wouldn't say a super bad dark hole, but, just wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. So ended up leaving. And actually, I wasn't just in for a traditional transfer. I had actually hung it up. I was planning on just going back to work and, moving back to Glenwood and starting working. I was actually working at a plumbing company family friend owns. Super thankful for him giving me a chance there, but he was big wrestling guy as well. Him and my dad are best friends still, but took the job, and he kind of was the one guiding me along to make sure that I went back to school. I think a few jobs, and anytime I ever needed off, once I decided maybe I wanted to wrestle again, he was, hey, go take the weekend, go out to Nebraska and see how things are, stuff like that. But I think I ended up leaving Iowa late May, early June, and then hadn't even considered going back to college until like early July, mid-July. So it's been about a month. It's 4 to 6 weeks where it was like, no, I'm done. I
Yeah.
don't want to go back. Don't want to go back to school. Don't want to go back to, wrestling anymore. Was pretty out of shape at the time. But then got a phone call from the coaches over at Nebraska-Kearney. They had a pretty good relationship with Dominguez there at MWC. And it's like, hey, these guys are going to reach out to you. Give them a chance. And then ended up, talking to them for a little bit. And it was like, no, I'm still done, And
Really?
they actually ended up inviting me to Fargo camp in Nebraska because they were going to be there. So it would have been like early July, like July 15th, 20th, somewhere in there. And I remember getting there and I wasn't going to go, but ended up getting a phone call from either my parents or a coach or something that morning. It was like, hey, you need to go. Just go and be there. And so I went, and Andrew Sorensen, our assistant coach at UNK, grabbed me like first thing when we got there. And I think we wrestled live for like an hour that day. I was super out of time. I think he snapped my nose into the mat like 12 times. I thought I had a broken nose when I walked out of the room that day. It was interesting. Who would have known that would have been the tactic that got me thinking about wrestling again was, but he knew what he was doing, I guess. But no, so I left there kind of considering it a little bit more, talked to them for like an hour afterwards. And they were, the first phone call that I had with Dalton Jensen there, the head coach, was, the word wrestling might have come up like once. We didn't really talk about wrestling. It was just all about like why I needed to go back to school, why I left, kind of trying to get to know me a little bit more and some of the goals that I had, what I wanted to accomplish in life. And really it just kind of started talking to me about I just need to go back and get an education and everything like that. And then I talked to him for a while that day. Wasn't all about like, hey, you need to come here so you can help us. It was more like, hey, you need to go back to school so you can help yourself. And that really got through to me then. And then ended up having a vacation scheduled for like a week from then or 2 weeks after that. And I hadn't talked to either of them since that day, and got a text like when I was driving down there from Sorensen. It was like, hey, have fun at the lake this weekend. Would love to talk to you when you get back. So like, just like those little things, where they cared about me, cared about who I was going to be. And then also like remembered that I was going on a vacation and when it was going to be, stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, it was definitely a good fit though. So made the decision after that. There really weren't a whole lot of options. As far as I think, talked to maybe a couple of junior colleges, but at the time, like I said, like I wasn't really interested in wrestling. So anytime, I think I had a couple of phone calls, but it was like, hey, no, I'm not too interested. So they kind of talked me out of that and got me back into school. So thank them a lot for those kind of things.
Yeah, interesting tactic by Sorensen. I thought it would almost be the opposite, where like, man, he just beat me up. Why would I want to go wrestle and do this again? Like, what the heck?
Oh yeah, no, I swore. I walked out of that room and I swore I'd broken my nose. I was like, God dang, guy.
The story, in a way, when you said that they were really pushing you to go back and get an education, and when you talked to him for an hour or so, wrestling came up maybe once. It reminds me of a story. I had somebody on the podcast, this was a couple years ago. His name was Destin McCauley. Remember him?
Yep. I love him.
Yes. Talking to him and hearing his story about how he ended up there is very similar in terms of, he said basically they were the first people to have talked to him and asked him what he wanted to do besides wrestling. And he's like, I've never really been asked that question before. He was just like identified as a wrestler. And so it's kind of a unique philosophy that they have there, that they are looking at improving you as a person, and then wrestling will come. But the most important thing is what you do after your career and how they set you up for success in the future post wrestling,
Yeah.
So no wonder why they're good, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. So they live, the best thing is they live through to it too. Like, I mean, shoot, you're talking, I know he said that. I know probably, shoot, I could ask 3 or 4 other guys that had ended up transferring over there, that were just ending their careers right when I was getting in. And I'm sure that was the tactic at the time, for everybody.
Mhm.
Talk to them, a little bit more about life and stuff like that. But I mean, shoot, it's one thing if you use it as a tactic and then, that's the kind of the last time that you talk about it, but
Mhm.
follow through. I mean, shoot, just being in the program for 5 years, with COVID, had
Mhm.
5, but just being in the program, I mean, shoot, my GPA, on my transfer almost doubled. Met my wife there, which is, big part of life as well. So just making sure that you're prepared after college. Um, and then, had a job set up before I had even, wrestled at the national tournament,
Wow.
that last. And I mean, shoot, almost everybody on the team has a job before they're, done competing, their career and what they want to do and go and accomplish in life too. So they definitely follow through. They run a great program and, really care about you as a person. And I think our alumni base has a lot of diversity in terms of careers as well. I know there's a lot
Yeah.
of lawyers that have gone through the program. There's some doctors that have gone through the program. We have quite a few, educators here recently, and wrestling coaches. I think state of Nebraska, there's 8 to 10 high school coaches and teachers that are, UNK alumni just in the state of Nebraska alone. So, but yeah, no, they definitely care about you and definitely want you to succeed once school's over.
Yeah. And you want to talk about two genuine guys. I mean, you got
Mm-hmm.
Jensen and Sorensen. I mean, come on. Like if you've ever crossed paths with them, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so
But
definitely.
what was your major at Iowa? Were you
Uh, un-
declared yet?
no,
Okay.
undecided. Yeah, so I'm just
Okay.
taking all
When did
whatever came.
elementary education come in then?
Um, so I went into UNK, I think after the transfer, because you usually get like 2 years, but I think when I transferred, they make you declare,
Oh,
after
okay.
the first, I can't remember, but started off as a business degree right away. And then it actually talked to one of my high school coaches, Adam Boothie, who was a teacher at the time in Glenwood, and assistant coach. And that was my assistant coach in high school too. We had a pretty good connection, and was talking to him and was kind of deciding. He owns a mowing business, and I was kind of thinking about doing the same type of thing when I was done, competing. So, he's like, well, like you can get the business degree, but business degree will help you like get things started, but why don't you go like into something like a teaching degree, because you can use it if you want or not, and either way you can start a business without a degree. So it's not like it's, necessary for you to have that degree. He's like, why don't you go, if especially, um, getting help with some tuition, like why don't you go and, get a degree that can be multi-purpose. So he had
Yeah.
actually talked at the time. I thought that elementary might be where it wanted to be. Actually, take it back. I thought math was where I wanted to be,
There we
because
go.
that
Okay.
was kind of one of those things that I wouldn't say I was super good at math, but I understood math.
Yeah.
Um, and then got into the degree and realized that I didn't understand math quite as much as I thought I understood.
Fair enough.
And it was going to add another year, I believe, onto my degree at the time, just with the prerequisites. And because I was, third year in college, usually you start those degrees, your first or second year.
Mhm.
Um, but so then from there, because I think it might have gone elementary, then math, or I can't remember exactly, and then ended up on PE. And I don't know why I ever thought of anything different other than, you can wear sweats
Mhm.
and play all day. Like, why would you not want to do that? So ended up doing that and, graduating that fall of my last season there. So
Yeah, and you ended up what, a 5-time all academic All-American, 5-time Scholar athlete. Like he really turned it around, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. And
I mean, that's to be a pretty proud thing to look back on, you know. Not only your wrestling career, but like your academics as well.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the academics over everything too, where it's like, especially when you see yourself going down a path that's not necessarily what you're proud of and what you're been known for within yourself. Like I said, I had a good GPA in high school, did well academically there, and then you go and kind of tank it for a year. And luckily, on my transfer, my GPA reset. Otherwise, I would have been digging myself out of a huge hole.
Hmm.
Um, Reset, I got a fresh start. I think that first semester ended up with like a 4.0 or really close. And then,
There we go.
it was just like one of those things that, I'm really grateful for and really glad that I had that chance to, change the direction of the ship,
Yeah.
where it was. So,
You must
but,
have stayed away from Cunningham's then, huh?
yeah, definitely.
When did you start feeling like yourself on the mat then? You know, you said you were out of shape. You took some time off. You were mentally done. I mean, that had to take a while, I would say, I would think, to get back
Yeah.
into that whole mindset and get back on the road to being successful as a wrestler.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that first year was actually super interesting. I was back on the mat, pretty much right when you get back to campus, give you a couple weeks, and then, you're kind of getting after it. But I said I was pretty out of shape. So I started doing some stuff of my own to get back into it, and I don't know. I mean, difference between, going from a Division I to a Division II school too, the out of shape that I thought I was in wasn't quite as out of shape as what maybe is really out of shape. And then, so, you work out for a few weeks on your own and then, hop in the room with some of those guys. And it's like, okay, this isn't super far out of reach. And then, you get back into it. And then that first semester, we had our wrestle offs, right around Halloween time, like the end of October. Cause I think our first tournament was out in Wyoming that first week of November. And went in, ended up earning the spot that semester. Or that, at the wrestle offs. I was planning on going to Wyoming the next week, and like 2 days after the wrestle offs found out that I was ineligible that first semester, something had slipped through the cracks on the transfer where it wasn't a GPA thing, but it was a credit thing. Because I think I took 12 credits that second semester at Iowa. You have to transfer with 9 over a 2.0. And I transferred with 9 credits over a 2.0 because I think I had one C minus that counted like 1.66. So that one didn't count. So I was down to 9, but one of my 9 credits was a pass fail class. So it didn't count towards it. So I only had 8 on the 9. We went through like the whole waiver process trying to get, granted eligibility. It didn't end up happening, which looking back, was a big deal, but I mean, now it's like, okay, it was just like 3 tournaments, but so I ended out that first semester just trained, which I mean, in the end, it probably wasn't a bad thing. Got to, just train for, 6 months rather than hop in and compete and everything like that. But, and then ended up coming back out. I think my first tournament of the year was just like a little tune-up tournament there at Midland, like right after Christmas. Before we headed out to national duels down in Louisville that like January 5th or whatever, that first full weekend of January. It went down there. So, had a couple of matches under my belt at that point. And then we ended up dueling, I want to say Pitt Johnstown, who at the time was the number 1 ranked guy. St. Cloud, who ended up having the number 2 ranked guy at the time. And then I want to say it was Notre Dame had like the number 5. I can't remember. I might be wrong on that one, but I know the number 1 and 2 ended up like, so we had 4 matches and I think 3 out of my 4 were top 5 guys. And I like lost all of them. I think lost to all of them, or maybe beat one. I can't remember exactly, but lost to, I know the number 1 and number 2 by like 2 points and 3 points. And it was like, okay, I can compete at this level, but that just really sucked. Like, just first intro was like 2 losses right away. So a little eye-opening at the time, but was good motivation to go through the rest of the season. Especially, the gap wasn't that big at the time. So it was definitely something attainable, and was kind of excited to keep rolling and get going with it.
Yeah, you could have taken that as a negative, but it sounds like you kind of spun it as a positive. It was like, I'm right there. I'm right there. I can see myself on the podium. How high? I can see myself on the top because I'm right with everybody. So like that could have been a nice motivating factor at a crucial time in the season too,
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely.
I mean, you end up 4th that year. Did you feel like the 4th best guy?
Personally, I would say, I've always wrestled with a high level of confidence, I would say,
Right.
those things, but also very realistic too. Like, I knew when guys were a lot better than me, but it was one of those things where it's like, I know they're a lot better than me, but like, I also believe I can, go do these great things, and stuff like that. So like, never really, I don't know. I don't know. You look back and say you didn't have a whole lot of negative thoughts, but like, then you like talk to an athlete that has the negative thoughts, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember having those, But no, so I thought I was on that level. I think going into the tournament, I was ranked like 10th or 11th. I had only had, like 15 matches under my belt at that point. So didn't really have anything to base it off of ranking wise. So it was one of those things. I think I knew I was a little better than that, but I didn't know necessarily how much better. And I think, I can't remember how I did at that regional either. Definitely didn't go into the tournament with a great seed, anything like that. But yeah, no. And then I remember getting to the tournament though, and you have a guy that hasn't really been in the rankings all year long. It's like, okay, good. So I think it was supposed to be him, and then win that match, and was going to have the rematch against the number 1 ranked kid who ended up actually winning the bracket that year. It's Cody Law from Pitt Johnstown. But I was supposed to have him second round, and ended up blowing the first match, and ended up losing first match, and had to wrestle all the way back, and ended up wrestling. I think it was the Notre Dame kid for 3rd and 4th who ended up beating me there too. But yeah, it was like, it was definitely unexpected at the time too. So it was like, oh, gotta buckle up now and get going. But
when you look back and after you just tell this story about how you were at Iowa and things just weren't quite clicking there, and so you were done, and now you get recruited, you go back, you're ineligible. Like, you had a lot of adversity in that short amount of time. So to finish 4th, do you look at that any differently, or are you more proud of that? That story you just told is pretty impressive, that you went through all that and ended up 4th.
Yeah,
In my opinion, I guess. I'm like, wow,
yeah.
sheesh.
Yeah. It's one of those things, right? It's, it's your own form of adversity, right? Where it's like, there are guys that go through so much more, whether losing people or, whatever. There's a lot of things that happen. Especially now that a lot of things are a little bit more publicized with things too. So you see it maybe a little more often just because it's out there a little bit more. But, at the end of the day, it was one of those things. I was just being a bad student and wasn't a social life, ended up leaving, it was never too low of a low. I don't look, especially now looking back, in the moment, it feels like it's the end of the world with some of that stuff. Looking back, it's like, well, all I did, like, I just dropped out of school. Like, it was, a lot of kids drop out of school, like, it's not like it's anything crazy in terms of a story. And then, the ineligible part, I would say that almost was worse than the whole, just that was, you're finally climbing back up, feeling good, and then all of a sudden, like, something gets in your way. But just one of those things you got to do and get through. And then there really wasn't a whole lot of craziness with that either. It was like, well, this sucks, but like, we're not training for this part of the year anyways. So and then having a good tournament. That was one of those tournaments that was kind of didn't know what to expect. I've only had 15, maybe even 10, 15 matches at the Division II level. I mean, a lot of those matches, I think I ended up with like 20 to 25, but I know a lot of those that second semester we had like some other divisions that we would wrestle against as well. So I really didn't know where I was going to stand towards the end of the year. And then, taking fourth, was pretty happy with it, know that I have 3 more years left. And it was just a motivating thing too, that, I'm right there and it's not that far away. And, now I have a whole year to continue to get better and get back there too. So,
yeah. And yes, perspective, of course, no, you didn't have this massive amount of adversity, but there was some adversity where there was quite a bit of, you could have went left, train could have went off the tracks, but you didn't. And, I appreciate your modesty, but I mean, there is quite a bit there that you overcame to get to a 4th place finish, from where you began. So, I mean, I'd be a little proud, like,
yeah, no, I know I kind of talk down some of those things too, but at the same time, like, yeah, it is, it's really cool. And it's, it was a lot of fun to be part of it too.
Yeah. And then the next year, I mean, did that just motivate? And were you just a man on fire then? I mean, I think you went wire to wire. You were just down there.
Yeah, that year was a lot of fun. Actually, I think so. I was actually really excited to wrestle a little bit of freestyle that spring. Ended up doing something to my elbow there at the regional national tournament stuff. So it was off the map for a couple of weeks. So kind of missed out on some of that. But then came right back in, like the May, June, July time. And from then on, it was pretty much, this is what I'm going to do. And there's not a whole lot going to stand in my way. And kind of took wrestling into my own hands at that point too, where, I think part of it too, it was nice having transferred from, whether it was Iowa or any other big program, like the amount of work that we put in that freshman year was a lot more work as a team than what we did, at UNK. So it was like one of those things where, you'd leave practice at UNK and it was like still kind of craving a little bit more just because, our practices were a lot harder before. And now it's like, it was a lot easier to get motivated to go do extra and go do more than that maybe would have gone that route right out of high school, where it's like, you kind of adapt to your environment. And at that point I had already kind of adapted to something that was, extremely difficult and, a lot of workouts, a lot of really long, hard workouts. And so it was pretty easy to, get the motivation to go in and do a little bit extra because it felt like I had a little bit more in the tank, for certain workouts and stuff like that. But yeah, so then that second year, a lot of fun. I can't remember. I used to, so, you asked me a couple of years ago, I think I could have named off almost every match I wrestled every year in college. Especially after coaching, it's like you get all the kids that you've coached mumbled up and it's like, I don't remember any of it. But yeah, I took a few losses that next year. I think majority were Division I losses, if I remember right. I know we went out to Cliff Keen's down in Vegas, lost a couple of matches. I think either made the blood round or was a couple rounds out from placing there. Lost to Isaiah White from Nebraska. Can't remember. There were a couple more too. But then, ended up, having a pretty good D2 year. And then,
pretty good.
Yeah, right. But, and actually, that was fun. I'm trying to remember it all, but it's hard when I need to look it up. I haven't looked up my stuff in a long time. But,
well, then the junior year, did you feel like you had a big target on your back? Did you feel like you went from the hunter to the hunted a little bit?
A little bit. There was a lot of things that actually had changed between those 2 years. So
you went up a weight,
Yeah. So ended up wrestling that year at 57, and then spring wrestled a lot of freestyle and Greco, went down to the open, stuff like that. Wrestled at 74 kilos, so 163 pounds, which was kind of like the first intro that I had to going up to 165. went into the season at 165. I can't remember ranking wise where I was at, but there were 2 other guys that I had wrestled that year. So there was 4 of us that were all really close and level. I think I'd beaten 1 and lost to 1 at national duels. One was a St. Cloud kid. I think I beat him. And then the McKendree kid, his name was, last name was Foster. He was pretty tough. He beat me at national duels. That brought me down to like 2nd or 3rd. And then actually his name was Fred Green. He transferred from, I believe, Virginia to Colorado Mesa at semester that year. So he was like kind of like a no-name coming in. Nobody really knew who he was, and he started tearing up stuff, and ended up wrestling him at regionals, and he ended up beating me, like 10-8, something like that. It was like a 2-point match, I think. And then get to nationals. So, we have, 4 guys. I think I was, if I remember right, I think I was seated 3rd.
Yep, you were, yeah.
Tournament. And so I was going to wrestle Foster in the semis and be able to get that match back, and then, one of those other 2 in the finals. So it was going to be, it was going to be a tough bracket. It was a lot of fun. I was actually excited for that challenge, where it's like, you have it, and then, you're at the top the next year, and then kind of bring it. This is just another challenge. I was young. I still had another year after that. So, whatever happens, you still have another chance to redeem yourself the next year. But then that was the year that nationals had gotten canceled. And that itself, that was crazy. That was something else. And then, just the whole whirlwind of everything happened after that. So
when that happened, were you guys about ready to wrestle? Was that year? Or was that D3 who was about ready to wrestle?
No, so us and D3 had a similar schedule. We were, let me see if I remember this right. So we were driving the bus up there. So nationals is Friday, Saturday. We were riding up there on Wednesday. And that's kind of when everything started hitting the fan, where it's like, holy crap, what's going on with everything? And then, and then I want to say we got there, that night they had said that they were going to limit the fans down to like 2 or 4 a person, whatever. We're in this big arena, and it's like you're going to have 100 people in the stands, but it was craziness. And then next day, woke up, we all went in and worked out on Thursday, and then we had practice at like 2 that afternoon over at the arena, and we got a text at like 1:30. It was like, hey, let's meet in this room before we go over to our workout. And like, you just knew what was about to be said when you walked into that meeting. It was a pretty ugly meeting. Especially we had a couple of seniors on the team at that point. One of them is one of my best friends still to this day. He had taken 2nd the last year. So we were in the finals together that year. And he had taken a 2nd, and not a big guy that like blames anything on the refs, but it was a pretty controversial call at the end too, for him to lose the match. And, he had a lot of motivation, was ready to go, feeling good, ranked number 1. And then his just career was ended at that moment. So it was pretty tough for him. I remember being there for him and everything, but it was like awkward, because it's like, you still have another year, and it's like, these guys don't. So it was hard to talk to anybody, it was just really hard to relate to each other and stuff like that. But yeah, so ended up dealing with that. And then, going to the next year, that was still crazy. Everything's limited. I think that was like one of the years that I had the least amount of matches, just because we shortened our schedule so much and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, it was crazy.
Yeah. Was there any thought, so you finished 5th that next year as a senior, was there any thought about, not going back out or coming back that year? You said you graduated in the fall, so I mean, you were done.
Yeah. So took 5th. Our team took 2nd. We lost by a 1.5 to St. Cloud State. We had I don't know. It's hard to say we had a great tournament, but I mean, we had 8 All-Americans. Sorry, we had 9 qualifiers, 8 of them All-American, but
Pretty good.
we had nobody in the finals though. So we had, 8 All-Americans, nobody in the finals. We're up by 2.5 points going into the finals. And St. Cloud had 4 guys in the finals. So one of their guys wins, and we're not going to win the tournament as a team. And I remember they lost, and we knew that they were probably going to lose 3 of them, but they lost the 3 in a row, or 3, down low. And then it came down to their heavyweight, who was a stud. I mean, we knew he was going to win. So, we really had no hope of winning it as a team going into it. It would be crazy if he got beat. And he was wrestling an unseeded kid, too. So, it was like, yeah, that would be a wild thing if he didn't, win. But, he ended up winning. And so we lost by 1.5 points. And that was tough, I don't know. At the time I said there was, a couple of things that maybe I was done, yada, yada. I think more of it was just to, be dramatic, I think, at the time. But I would say the only time that I actually considered it was Kearney High there in Kearney was hiring a new PE teacher and a coach for their wrestling team. And their wrestling team's awesome. I mean, they're, top 3, top 4, whatever. Yeah. And at the time, so I applied for the job, and I didn't know if I was going to, take it, if not. And I hadn't student taught yet, so it was going to be a weird deal. Ended up didn't get it, didn't really have a chance. I mean, I hadn't graduated, didn't have a degree. So I think if I would have, done that, maybe would have hung it up. But I mean, outside of that, there really wasn't a whole lot of, desire to be done wrestling at that point, especially after, not, competing really well. And then the team doesn't win. It was, we owed a little bit more to the team there too. So I think we had 6 seniors that were granted the extra year from that season, and not a single one. I don't think we even really talked about it. It was just one of those things. We all came back and we all, did really well, and then ended up winning the tournament by 45 points the next season as a team. So that was a lot of fun. That was probably the most fun I've ever had as a competitor, was winning it as a team. Was, definitely the highlight of my wrestling career. It was a lot of fun to be able to do that with everybody, and it was cool.
Yeah, what a way to go out too. We tend to talk, I tend to talk to people for this podcast, and quite a few of them, they end it not on the best terms, or not that they're, they look back and they're not quite satisfied. They're okay with how it ended, but they're like, man, I wish this would have happened differently. But for you, man, to get that title, not only as a individual, but as a team, to go out that way, super senior, I guess they called you.
Yeah, right.
That had to be just a cherry on top of a lot of hard work,
Yeah. No, it was awesome. It was one of those things. I can't remember what I stumbled. I think it was a Facebook memory the other day where because it would have been, because it was, February 1st or something like that, where it was the season so it would have been February of 2019. So the year after I'd taken 4th, before I'd won it. But during that season, we're leading up to the regional tournament there, in a couple of weeks or whatever. And it had a quote in there, I just reread it because it was, you got to go back and do that every now and then. But there was a quote in there, something about they were just asking how I was feeling going into the tournament, as an individual, was ranked 1st and everything. And I was like, yeah, no, this will be cool and everything, but I really want to win it as a team. That's kind of our goal and what we want to do. And we weren't too close that year. I think we only had 4 finalists. That year was crazy, I say this, but we had 4 finalists. So it was our 25, 33, me and our heavyweight had all made the finals, but we were our only 4 All-Americans as well. So we ended up qualifying 6. The two of them had gotten beat out, who some of my best friends, but they had ended up getting beat out, and then the other 4 all made the finals. But I think we ended up 5th or 6th that year as a team. Just, a lot of points there, but not a whole lot, from the other 6 weights. So, but, just even saying that even before I had won it, like it was one of those things that, it was really, really cool to be able to do once we did do it as a team.
Yeah. Especially when, I feel like Kearney was always, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way or anything. They'd always seem like they were the bridesmaid and never the bride type of deal. St. Cloud State they've had just a stranglehold on this, so to finally get over that hump and slay the dragon, if you will, and by 40 points. I mean, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
Whew.
The only thing I will say that I wish would have been different about it, like, don't get me wrong, it was awesome to dominate. I think we had the tournament wrapped up after the first couple of matches of the first round on Saturday, in the third round of the tournament, it was wrapped up already. It was really cool. But there never was a glorifying moment, as a team, it wasn't for St. Cloud that year before, that had to have been so cool. It came down to the last match of the tournament and their heavyweight pulled through and won the tournament for them. That was one moment where they, were able to, celebrate that they won as a team. We didn't really have that as much, but at the end of the day, dominating is really cool too. And, winning by 40 points is really cool too. So I can't complain too much, but I am a little jealous of them this year. They are ranked number 1 right now. And I think St. Cloud's ranked number 2, 14 points behind them. So should be a race this. I'm actually really excited for them.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And gosh, trying to think, were you with Portillo? Hetherington, was he the heavyweight? Lee?
Yes. So Jared Hendricks was our heavyweight for the first 3 years of college, and then Lee Harrington was there.
Harrington, right. I think I said Hetherington. Yeah, Harrington.
Yep. Yeah. And they've got another stud heavyweight right now too, Crew Howard. He's ranked number 1 in D2. So he's a stud. He's
from Iowa, I think, right?
Yeah, Clarinda. Yep.
Clarinda, okay.
Clarinda, yeah. He's a stud, dominating Division 2 this year. He's doing awesome. So him, and then gotta shout out my boy Nick James. He and I are, as close as you can be, being 9 hours apart. But he had actually retired after last season. He got second last year at nationals, and he had known before the season that he was not going to use his COVID year, because he's wrestled 5 years in college. He was done, and ended up they had gotten beat by St. Cloud and in a duel a few weeks ago, and got a call from the coach. Was like, hey, we can get you eligible. Would you be interested? And he's like, I think about it. And he ended up being like, all right, let's do it. They got him eligible, and he entered the team, and he came into the year ranked number 1 from being on the couch. So, but no, I'm super excited for him. He should have a great year. He's going to wrestle his first match of the season on Friday, and then go into regionals here in a couple of weeks. And I was just talking to him today. He sounds like he's feeling good, and I'm excited for him too. So him coming out of retirement, put them back up there, and should make for a great national tournament this year.
Yeah, sounds like somebody else that I've been talking to about coming out of retirement. And
right.
Well, I'll give a shout out here to Bellevue East alum. I think his name's Daniel DeRozier is on the team.
Yep.
Washington.
Yep.
So
Daniel's awesome. I think we shared 1 season together.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was fun getting to know him.
Yeah. And who did you know? So you graduated? Did you? How'd you end up then? Real quick, wind this up here. How'd you come back to this side, to Omaha? Is that where you just got a job, or?
Yeah. So my family is from Glenwood, not very far from Omaha.
Yeah.
And my wife and I had met at UNK, but she's initially from Bennington, where her family's still from. So,
okay.
We're 45 minutes from each other, family houses. And she had taken a job at Omaha Westview as a teacher, into December, January of that last year that we were out there. And so she would start in August, and I had just graduated with my teaching degree and, started applying for jobs and ended up getting the job in Bellevue. And then, we moved back, bought a house, and yeah, it was pretty much it. It was just like, wait, we were done. I was done competing and ready to go get started with life, and moved back and got started.
So real quick, how did you convince her to move to Fargo then?
So she's actually still in Omaha right now.
Really?
Yeah. So with taking this job in July, it's because my first day was like July 1st. Taking the job in July, she had signed her contract with her school, back in March of that year. So, and we still had the house. She wasn't going to be able to find a job up here to teach. I mean, most positions had been filled by that time anyway. So it was one of those things, I live in a little studio apartment right now, like 200 or 300 square feet or something like that. But
Okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's tough, but it's just one of those things that we're doing for the year, and then, figure out life here in a couple of months when we, have to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Dang. So what, I mean, sounds like maybe you're planting your flag here a little bit, or?
Yeah, no, I don't know. There's a lot of options, we haven't had too many conversations about, what's going to happen yet. And we have time too, where, she doesn't start school again until August. So, especially with the house and all that kind of stuff, we have a lot of things to figure out. She's actually a 3-sport coach. She's head cross country, head track coach at her school, and assistant basketball. So, she's pretty busy too. So we have we talk, say hi, say bye, good night, morning. But, we're both just kind of, not getting by, but like in a good way, like just doing our thing and doing what we love. And, but yeah.
What does she think of the wrestling world? Because she was a basketball player, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Did she play in college too?
Yeah. So she played out at Eastern Wyoming for a couple of years before she transferred to Nebraska-Kearney as well. But she likes it. Her younger brother actually wrestled in high school, and then actually wrestled at Morningside.
Okay.
In a little while. So she gets it. She didn't grow up around it. Her brother, started wrestling as like a middle schooler, and she was, deeper into high school at that point. So it wasn't like she grew up around it, but she understands it and all that kind of stuff. And all of her friends at UNK were all, friends of the wrestling team as well. So it kind of, just is what it is type of deal.
Yeah.
But she gets it now.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Special thanks to my guest, assistant coach Matt Malcom, for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. Cover art created and designed by Kristen Gill. Please feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. And you can also check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page to hear more of my content. And don't forget to check out my website, letstalkwrestlingpodcast.my.canva.site. And, as always, be sure to tune in to hear the next guest of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Take care. See you next time.